How was your training like during that time? Because I know you've transitioned, and we'll talk about that too. And I don't know if it was a transition. Maybe you've always trained the same way. So maybe you want to talk about your time, how you started, what your training was like when you first started, and
Mhm.
then we can dive into how you're doing things now.
Sure. When I first started, I went to the gym in Trinidad, and back then you weren't allowed to just go into a gym and train. You were told what you were going to do. So you had a gym instructor before personal trainers, and the personal trainers kind of came way after. The instructor would tell you what to do, give you exercises, write down a program, kind of keep their eye on you, make sure you're doing the right thing. And I started off training pretty conventional, volume. And then what would happen was people in the gym took notice of me. They saw this really skinny kid. And I mean, 125 pounds, 6 feet tall, not really something you see in a bodybuilding gym, especially, Trinidad back at that time. Everybody walking around there completely jacked. But they saw the dedication that I had, they saw the commitment I had, and it pulled me over, have me train with them. And by training with those bigger guys in the gym, I started understanding what intensity really was. I realized that what I thought intensity wasn't really what it could be. And one guy in the gym, his name was Gully. He was the strongest guy in the gym. Took me under his wing. I started training with him, and he started training as well with another guy called Tony Dixon. Tony was competitive bodybuilder, and Tony was crazy. So we would have these squat sessions at night because he was an instructor at the gym. After the gym closed, he put some heavy metal music on, and we'd literally squat till we threw up. Like, it was just insanity, just really high volume but high intensity. But I wasn't really growing that much. And as time went on, I separated from them because I wouldn't really train with them anymore. I was training on my own, and I started realizing that a lot of the people who were in the gym making progress, working in the magazines, they were so completely different. One person would train twice a day. One person trained 6 days a week. One would train twice a week. One would train every other week. And they all had the same gains. And growing up, I was very much, the academic. I was the nerdy kid. And I started stopping myself and saying, wait a minute, there's an academic explanation for this. You're looking at this from the idea of, like a fanboy. That's not, if you want to, make progress in this, you have to look at things objectively. And the realization was they're on drugs. So it didn't matter how they trained. It was high volume, it was low volume, twice a day, once a day. Didn't matter. They got results. If the diet was kind of okay, not that great, they still got results. In fact, I can say for a fact that if you use steroids, even small amounts of steroids, you can get results if your diet is horrible and your training is subpar. All you have to do is pretty much show up and you're going to get some results. And so I had to stop listening everybody around me, as well meaning as they were, because they weren't in a place where they could help me, because I wanted to do something that no one else was doing. There weren't natural bodybuilders there who I could turn to for guidance. And so I did, what any nerdy kid would do. I go to the library, I'd read everything I could about physiology. Of course, back then there's no Wikipedia, I can't access, papers online because online didn't exist. The internet didn't exist back then. And so I spent a lot of time in the library, and everything I found kind of came to the idea of overload increases muscle mass. It has to be overload, and the stimulation has to be something that's unaccustomed. Now, at the time, Mike Mentzer, a lot of people tend to put us kind of in the same paragraph. Mike Mentzer was very much into high intensity training and everything else, and he and Arthur Jones really popularized it in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s as well. And I think when Dorian Yates started competing using that high intensity approach, it brought that high intensity training to failure paradigm back onto the forefront. But I never took anything that Mike Mentzer said as or Arthur Jones said, because I was fortunate enough to have people around me who knew him and who knew that he used more drugs than anybody else did, who knew that he spent most of his time not training, who knew that there was this big thing with before and after where he and ACB after, transformed using high intensity training. Number one, they were on drugs. They just cycled off. They were off season. They started using their drugs again, and they looked fantastic. But they were huge marketers of it because it was financially profitable for them. It was profitable. It was about making profit. And what I was really seeing in bodybuilding as well was it was all about profit. There were very few bodybuilders who would talk to you and be candid about anything. At that time, too, bear in mind, we're talking like 1980s, late 80s. Bodybuilding was very much about trying to get into the Olympics and trying to create this idea of drug testing possibly down the line, which professional bodybuilding it's a little bit on the absurd side. And so bodybuilders would try to find, number one, they're trying to find a way to make money, but it would also not talk openly about their drug use. Today they do. Most of them do. Back then they didn't. And so it was very difficult to kind of gauge if anybody was saying something that was meaningful or not. And so I completely ignored everything about, the heavy duty training, completely ignored it. And a lot of it didn't make sense either, because I could tell that if a truly natural person was training that way, the one set to failure thing that's just one set alone wouldn't really do it. So I kind of try to find my own path. And, I started training, said, okay, I'm going to train at higher intensities. I was training at the time 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And I was going to make this very painful scientific experiment to see what would happen if I trained for 3 days a week at all out intensity. And so I would write out my workout plans and give them to instructors at the gym, because the workouts were literally too hard for me to do for myself. I had to have someone pushing me, and they were more than happy to. And I found that when I trained, I would last no more than 10 minutes. It would be horrible. I mean, they were horrible workouts. I would throw up regularly. I was physically ill, but I'd keep on training. And somewhere around that time, Tom Platz came to Trinidad for a seminar, and we got to see him do a leg workout. And I realized that as hard as I was training, and as hard as I had seen other people training, that there was something about this man that was a different level. And even though he was a natural athlete, there was an intensity to his dedication, an intense dedication to pushing himself and not being afraid to go to that almost very dark place that you go to when you're really uncomfortable. The bar is bending, but you somehow find a way to keep on. That was kind of a light for me in terms of, okay, I'm natural. I'm not, I don't have all the tools these people have. And I was also in a place as well where my diet was very conservative by bodybuilding standards. I was in, Trinidad. I didn't have access to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight at all. Nowhere near that. In fact, throughout my entire time, I was averaging 120 grams of protein a day. And I was able to go from 125 to 198 and a half in contest shape on 120 grams of protein a day. I had to really just kind of like ignore everything in the magazine. Everything else, just focus on what I could do and do the best I could do what I had. And I came up with this way of training that was all about high intensity, low volume, 3 days a week, 20 minutes max. I've done that since 31 years now. I've been training that way.
Are you someone who enjoys training?
It's not part of me. It is me. It's a completion of me. It's a place where I get to really be myself. But when I have something really heavy in my hands, it's really painful, and every fiber of my being says, okay, put it down, but I kind of ignore that part and keep on going nonetheless. That's when I feel really alive. I look forward to it and I don't look forward to it. There's always that dichotomy, a bit of a polar approach to how you train. And when the pandemic happened in March 2020, all the gyms in New York shut down. And so now I decided to train at home, and I took my entire personal training business online. So I'm only online available now. I haven't stepped foot in the gym since 2020, and I have a home gym. And so I can literally just walk over there and do my thing 3 times a week and lay on the floor afterwards. I don't have to move. I can collapse on the floor. No one's going to walk on me. No one's going to, look, what's wrong with that guy? I guess it's one of the best parts of having a home gym.
Absolutely. There's a huge mental component of, you could say psychological component of knowing that you have to go to this dark place, like you mentioned, especially if you're training 3 times per week and for only 20 minutes. Do you sometimes feel like, I have to do this type of training today? I want to take it easy. I want to do, leave a few reps in the tank, or just not have to worry about going all the way to failure. Do you ever have those thoughts?
Always, all the time.
Okay.
All the time. I question myself all the time. I mean, I turn 50 next year, and I'm training the same way I did when I was 21. Like, there's no difference. It's not like I'm taking it easy. It's not like I'm taking my foot off the gas. When I go into that room, I'm going to do whatever I can to either surpass what I did last time and try to achieve excellence. Excellence is what I'm looking at. I'm always trying to find a way to achieve excellence. Excellence doesn't exist in equilibrium. You can't think about trying to stay where you are and achieve excellence. Excellence is always about have to, get to that place. And I've understood, and it's been extremely valuable from my training. And I think I should preface the fact that I studied ninjutsu when I was much younger, and I taught ninjutsu for many decades as well. And it started with this idea of you get to an uncomfortable place and you feel like you can't go anymore, but that's an illusion. That's not your true self. Your true self is kind of lies behind all that pain, all that idea of trying to find comfort all the time. But the only way that you're going to ever achieve anything is if you get away from that comfort, that you have to, in a way, avoid comfort. I'm not saying, go into the nice chair, but anything in life that is worth achieving is going to require some discomfort. And for me, I stopped competing in 2004 because I realized, among other things, that there were things in the sport I didn't do. But I didn't need it anymore to achieve excellence. I could achieve excellence on my own. I didn't need to be on a stage, judged with other people to be able to go to the gym and have the motivation to be completely on point. I didn't need upcoming contest dates to be in shape where you can see all my abs all year round and stay on my diet. I didn't really need it. For me, it was an excellent tool that I think I outgrew. And I got to a point where I took a picture of myself. My son took a picture of me 2 days ago. And even I was a little bit shocked as to how fat I was. But again, I literally eat 100% clean all the time. I don't eat junk food. I haven't had first off, most of the junk foods that most people eat I've never had. And even things like protein shakes. Like my last protein shake was in, I want to say 1999.
Oh, wow.